Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's Sunday, July 28th, 2025, and as always, we're cutting through the noise to bring you the critical intelligence. I hope you already follow our new YouTube channel, Next Site Intelligence. And what's new today, we are also available on Spotify. Just look us up, Deep Dive Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to follow us there too. So today's deep dive comes directly from an amazing source, Next Site. They're a really dedicated intelligence company. They focus on global intelligence, and they've actually developed their own open source intelligence platform. It's called SiteConnect. It's designed specifically to help investigators worldwide. Really cool stuff. If you're curious about their detailed intelligence reports, which, by the way, they can customize to fit specific interests, you should check out their website, www.next-site.com. This is our regular daily deep dive, and right now we're peeling back the layers on their intelligence brief for Saturday, July 26th. 2025, our mission.
Well, it's to unpack the most critical global intelligence from this report, helping you understand what's truly happening beneath the headlines, and, maybe more importantly, why it matters to you.
Yeah, and to really get a handle on the insights we're about to share, it's really vital to understand Next Site's methodology first, particularly their reliability and confidence flags. These are pretty crucial for figuring out how much weight to give each piece of info. They act like a quick shorthand, telling us how trustworthy the source seems and how certain we are about the information itself. So first, there's the source reliability scale. It uses an Admiralty A through F rating, pretty standard in the field. A means the source is completely reliable. B is usually reliable. That's a common one we'll see. C is fairly reliable. Then you get into D, not usually reliable. E is unreliable. And F means, well, it just cannot be judged. Then there's the information confidence scale. This one's rated 1 to 6. A 1 means the information is confirmed by independent sources. Solid. 2 means it's probably true. Again, very common. 3 foot means possibly true. 4 is doubtfully true. 5 means it's improbable. And 6 foot, like F, means it cannot be judged. You'll hear us mention these flags like B2 or C3 with each item. It just gives you that critical lens to view the intelligence through.
Okay, perfect. Let's unpack today's brief then, starting with North America. The regional BLUF, that's the bottom line up front for those new here states. Rising public safety incidents, a deadly heat wave, and contentious immigration rulings heighten moderate threats and spark economic and legal repercussions. Threat level and risk, both rated moderate sense. So, first item sounds pretty significant. U.S. judge blocks termination of birthright citizenship program. That sounds like a really big deal.
It absolutely is. A federal judge down in Boston actually blocked the Trump administration's attempt to, end birthright citizenship for children of immigrants born here. This piece of intelligence carries a B2 rating, so usually reliable source, probably true information. The core argument from the plaintiffs was essentially that this policy violated constitutional rights. They specifically cited the 14th Amendment, and, the impact would be huge, potentially affecting hundreds of thousands of people.
Right. So beyond just the legal headlines, what are the immediate, maybe less obvious effects? What should you be watching for?
Well, it's not just a legal thing, It's kind of a critical safety valve for the economy. Think about the ripple effect. If hundreds of thousands of people, many already part of the workforce, were suddenly in legal limbo, that would massively disrupt labor markets, agriculture, service industry, construction.
Okay.
WBUR News actually corroborated this. U.S. District Judge Leo Sorokin's ruling keeps a nationwide injunction in place. And states themselves had argued that ending it would threaten millions in health insurance funding. They had skin in the game, too.
Interesting.
Yeah, and New Jersey's Attorney General, Matthew Platkin, celebrated it, basically saying, American-born babies are American. Simple as that.
Obvious.
So this decision, it brings a crucial bit of predictability back, averting potential economic chaos and providing stability for a lot of families.
Predictability, that's key, isn't it? Especially when dealing with something as, unpredictable as the weather. Our next topic, heat wave scorches southeastern and midwestern U.S. Yeah, this was an intense one. It affected over 80 million Americans, temperatures soaring above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or 38 Celsius for our international listeners. This also comes with a B2 rating. Usually reliable, probably true. And look, this wasn't just a typical summer scorcher. It was driven by this persistent high-pressure dome just sitting there, trapping hot air. And of course, climate change is intensifying these kinds of events. We saw energy demand just surge, natural gas prices jumped, insurers are already bracing themselves for claims, heat-related health issues, strain on infrastructure, that sort of thing.
Right, so it's definitely not just about cranking up the AC. When we talk about this heat wave, what are some of those subtle, everyday impacts that maybe you don't immediately connect to climate change stressing infrastructure?
Oh, it's everything. It's brownouts, maybe even blackouts as power grids struggle, increased demand on water supplies. Think about reduced productivity for outdoor workers. Can't work safely in that heat. And it translates directly to higher utility bills for everyone. Potential health risks, especially for vulnerable people. It's a real financial burden.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder, really, of how climate change is hitting our daily lives and our wallets right now, not some distant future thing.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift our gaze over to Europe. The regional BLUF there highlights that Europe grapples with severe wildfires, high-stakes trade negotiations with the U.S., and arms financing for Ukraine, raising moderate threats to public safety and economic stability. Again, threat level and risk, moderate.
Whoa.
So while some areas are dealing with political heat, others are battling literal fire. Wildfires sweeping Greece and Albania.
Indeed. Wildfires burned across Greece, also North Macedonia and Albania. Temperatures were above 40 degrees Celsius, that's 104 Fahrenheit. This forced evacuations caused significant damage. It carries a B2 rating. What's fueling them? Well, high temperatures, strong winds, all exacerbated by climate change, the pattern we're seeing more and more. And the financial toll, it's already significant. Tourism disruptions, crop losses could cost hundreds of millions of euros, particularly in Greece. Plus, you can expect large insurance claims to follow.
Yeah, it really underscores just how visible and how costly the human and economic impacts of climate change are becoming, especially in places that rely so heavily on tourism.
Exactly.
Okay, now onto another kind of heat. High-stakes international relations. We're looking at EU-US trade talks in Scotland.
Right. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen met with U.S. President Donald Trump. They were negotiating a potential trade agreement. Officials were sort of cautiously optimistic, noting maybe a 50% chance of success. This also gets a B2 rating. The dynamics are interesting. The EU is pushing hard for continued market access, especially trying to avoid those threatened U.S. auto tariffs. Meanwhile, the U.S. wants more access for its agricultural products. It's a classic trade-off negotiation. Investors seem somewhat receptive to the progress or lack of disaster. European stocks saw a slight rise as markets kind of factored in maybe lower tariff risks.
Okay, but beyond the boardrooms and the stock tickers, how does the outcome of talks like these actually trickle down? How does it impact the average person listening? What's the real-world ripple effect?
Oh, it's pretty direct, actually. The outcome influences everything from the price of the car you might be thinking about buying to the cost of your groceries. If tariffs go up or down, it changes import costs. That affects consumer prices directly. And it can even impact job markets in big industries like auto manufacturing or agriculture, depending on how the deal shakes out. It's a direct link from high-level diplomacy right down to your household budget.
Got it. Okay, let's move east to Asia. The regional BLUF there paints a picture of, well, intensifying security challenges, it says. Asian security challenges intensify as border clashes between Thailand and Cambodia continue, while China pushes global AI governance and extreme weather disrupts northern provinces. Threat level here is substantial, though risk is moderate. Now, there's a headline here that definitely caught my eye. It involves Trump mediating a Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire. What exactly happened there?
Yeah, it's quite something. Former U.S. President Donald Trump apparently telephoned the Cambodian and Thai leaders. He urged them to accept a ceasefire. This was after border clashes had tragically killed over 30 people and displaced something like 130,000. This item carries a B3 rating, so usually reliable source, but the information is only possibly true. Needs a bit more caution. The how is, well, very specific. It was phone diplomacy, apparently conducted from his golf course in Scotland. And it came with a warning, a potential use of trade levers if the fighting didn't stop.
That's certainly unconventional diplomacy. Beyond the raw data here, what's your take on why this particular border conflict escalated so much that it needed an external mediator?
Yeah.
Especially a former U.S. president jumping in.
Well, Al Jazeera reported on Trump's Truth Social post about it. He emphasized, quote, ceasefire, peace, and prosperity seems to be a natural... Look, this conflict has deep historical roots, land disputes, temple access, that sort of thing. Without a clear, immediate way to de-escalate internally, sometimes external pressure, even unconventional pressure, can provide the nudge needed. It also shows how quickly these seemingly local disputes can grab global attention, especially when a major power like the U.S. feels its regional interests or, trade relationships might be affected. The very fact that someone's calling from a golf course threatening trade action shows the level of international concern about regional stability spilling over.
Okay. Next up, a major technological initiative with potentially huge global implications. China proposes a global AI cooperation body.
Right. Chinese Premier Li Shang proposed this at the World Artificial Intelligence Conference in Shanghai, establishing a global AI cooperation organization. This is flag B2. Usually reliable, probably true. China's argument essentially is that fragmented AI governance, different rules everywhere, could lead to some countries being excluded. They're calling for equitable access, which, is a subtle or maybe not so subtle critique of U.S. export controls. Those controls are aimed at limiting China's access to the most advanced AI chips and tech.
Right, that's definitely one way to frame it. But couldn't you also argue it's a strategic play? A way for China to gain geopolitical leverage in the AI space? How do you sort of weigh those different interpretations?
Oh, it's absolutely multifaceted. You have to see both sides. On one hand, China has a perfectly legitimate interest in shaping global AI standards. They want to ensure their own access to technology and markets. That's rational. On the other hand, yes, it could certainly be seen as an effort to counter U.S. tech dominance and maybe create a regulatory environment that's more favorable to China's own burgeoning AI industry. Regardless of the motive, this push for AI governance will shape innovation. It'll impact tech supply chains, national security strategies worldwide. It affects the tech you use every day, from your phone's smart features to industrial automation. It's absolutely a race for technological supremacy and also a race to write the rules that govern it.
Fascinating. Okay, let's turn now to the Middle East. The regional BLUF there is stark. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza deepens with starvation deaths and stalled aid, while regional conflicts extend to Lebanon and Iran, elevating severe threat levels. Threat level is severe, risk is high. We're seeing some really dire news with Israel resumes airdrop aid to Gaza, and also U.S. Congress responds to mass hunger in Gaza. Can you give us the full picture here?
It's a grim picture. The Israeli military announced they were resuming humanitarian airdrops. They also mentioned establishing safe passage corridors to deliver food and medicine into Gaza. This comes amidst mounting claims of starvation and, frankly, intense international pressure. The airdrops themselves are rated B2. Usually reliable, probably true.
Right.
The U.S. Congress response is rated B3, usually reliable, possibly true. So the how involves C-130 aircraft dropping parcels and supposedly corridors for trucks. Meanwhile, in the U.S., senators are indeed criticizing Israel quite strongly over the mass hunger situation. There's even serious talk, about conditioning future military aid. AP News and CBS News corroborated Israel's statement that the aid drops would, quote, refute the false claims of deliberate starvation. That's their framing.
No.
However, the head of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, issued a really stark warning. He called airdrops expensive, inefficient, and can even kill starving civilians. He basically called them a distraction and screen smoke. He stressed that what he termed man-made hunger can only be addressed by lifting restrictions on aid entry and guaranteeing safe movement for aid workers. That's the only real solution, he argues. And the human cost. It's devastating. Reports indicate over 100 people have died from malnutrition since the war began. 80% of them children.
80%.
Yeah.
That's just heartbreaking. This crisis, it really reflects a critical failure of aid delivery, doesn't it? A systemic failure.
It absolutely does. It underscores the immense, almost impossible challenges of humanitarian response in active conflict zones. Even well-intentioned efforts to deliver aid face huge logistical, political, and security hurdles. And tragically, it's the most vulnerable populations who suffer the consequences.
Yeah. Okay, shifting slightly but staying in the region, there was also a significant internal security incident. A courthouse attack in Iran's Sistan Baluchistan province.
Yes, suicide attackers identified as being from Jaish al-Adl, a Sunni militant group, stormed a courthouse there. Tragically, they killed 6 civilians and 3 security officers. This incident carries a B2 rating. Usually reliable, probably true. Jaish al-Adl claims they are fighting against discrimination faced by the Sunni Baluch minority in that region of Iran. It points to long-standing internal grievances and unrest.
Right, so this isn't just an isolated attack. It really highlights these ongoing internal tensions within Iran and the broader challenges of maintaining regional stability when you have these kinds of deep-seated grievances in active militant groups.
Precisely.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to Africa. The regional BLUF indicates a difficult situation. Political exclusion, deadly violence, and malnutrition crises increase high risks across Africa, with protests and rebel threats undermining fragile peace processes. Here, the threat level is substantial and the risk is high. Amidst these really serious challenges, there's a fascinating social trend mentioned. African Americans relocating to Africa seeking safety. What's driving this?
Yeah, it is fascinating. We're seeing growing numbers of African Americans moving, particularly to countries like Kenya and Ghana. They cite reasons like seeking physical safety, finding greater racial acceptance, and also a desire to connect with their ancestral heritage. This trend is rated C3, so fairly reliable source, but possibly true information. Needs more data, perhaps. The drivers seem complex, but certainly experiences of racism and the, let's say, intense political polarization in the U.S. seem to be prompting some expatriates to look elsewhere for stability and a stronger sense of identity. And programs like Ghana's Year of Return have actively encouraged this diaspora connection and investment. African News actually quoted an American YouTuber, Austin Holloman, who settled in Kenya. He said he feels socially accepted and at home there. Another source, Adila Mohammed, who runs a relocation company, noted a notable rise in clients. She described it powerfully as people deciding to make a choice for themselves. They are not being forced. Their shackles are being broken. Chains are being thrown away mentally. And a public policy expert, Rafael Abonio, even commented that America is essentially losing talent. It is losing resources. It is losing the narrative that America is the land of dreams.
That's a really powerful statement. What does this kind of reverse migration ultimately suggest about global perceptions? Perceptions of stability, of opportunity, both for the U.S. and maybe for these African nations?
It suggests a real reevaluation is happening, a rethinking of where opportunities truly lie and where individuals feel they can actually thrive. For the African nations involved, it's potentially a significant influx of human capital, new resources, different kinds of innovation. For the U.S., though, it does pose a pretty profound question about its long-standing promise as, the land of opportunity for everyone. It really makes you wonder if that land of dreams narrative is undergoing a fundamental shift in the 21st century.
Definitely something to think about. Now, alongside this trend, there's also a critical and tragic humanitarian situation. Malnutrition kills hundreds of children in northern Nigeria.
This is just devastating news. At least 652 children reportedly died from malnutrition just in Nigeria's Katsina state, and that's just in the first half of 2025. This carries a B3 rating, usually reliable source, possibly true information. What's behind it? Well, the report points to two main drivers. Donor fatigue among major Western governments, the US, UK, EU, their funding has been cut. And that's coupled with persistent, grinding insecurity in the region, which severely hampers the delivery of aid to the people who desperately need it.
652 children. That's a staggering, horrific figure. It's like a profound consequence of both ongoing conflict and a critical shortfall in international aid, isn't it?
It is. It's a stark reminder of how conflict and funding gaps can create these catastrophic humanitarian crises, often hitting children the hardest.
Okay. Let's head over to Latin America, the regional BLUF states. Latin America faces political maneuvering, U.S. visa restrictions and migration crises. Cartels and self-deportation highlight structural insecurity. Threat level and risk, both moderate here. And we're seeing the direct impact of U.S. immigration policy again. Two items mentioned. U.S. reviewing visa denial for Venezuelan Little League team and a family self-deporting to Mexico amid U.S. immigration pressures.
Right. First, the Little League team. U.S. authorities were apparently reviewing their earlier decision to deny visas to this Venezuelan team. That denial forced the team to forfeit their spot in a tournament. Why? Because of a broad U.S. ban affecting the families of Venezuelan government officials. That story has a B3 rating. Usually reliable, possibly true. Then, separately, there's the story of a Mexican family who actually chose to self-deport back to Mexico. They used a program dating back to the Trump administration. But the report notes they later regretted that decision. That one's rated C3. Fairly reliable source, possibly true info.
These stories, even the Little League one, they really illustrate the complex, often deeply personal impact of these broad immigration policies and the underlying diplomatic tensions. It's not just about abstract rules, is it? It's about real lives being disrupted, opportunities lost, even for kids playing baseball.
Exactly. It puts a human face on policies that can sometimes seem very abstract from afar.
Okay, finally, let's look at Oceania Pacific. The regional BLUF here expresses a bit more optimism. Infrastructure incidents, healthcare innovations, and climate policy debates underscore low to moderate threats, while travel resilience and hydrogen investments show regional optimism. Threat level and risk are both low. And let's highlight a forward-looking initiative mentioned here. Taranaki mayors pitch hydrogen industry to NZ government. This sounds pretty promising.
It does. Mayors from New Zealand's Taranaki region are actively urging the central government to invest in hydrogen infrastructure there. Their pitch is basically, let's leverage our region's existing energy expertise. Taranaki has a history with oil and gas to potentially lead the country's decarbonization efforts using hydrogen. This comes with a C3 rating. Fairly reliable, possibly true. RNZ News reported they propose creating a hydrogen production hub. The idea is to decarbonize heavy transport, maybe industry. They acknowledge that hydrogen's green credentials depend on how it's made, which is crucial. You need renewable energy to make green hydrogen. But they emphasize Taranaki already has some relevant infrastructure, pipelines, ports, skilled workforce, and importantly, they stress the need for MENA, that's the local Maori, Iwi, and Hapu, the indigenous tribes and subtribes, to be included right from the start, ensuring an inclusive approach to this potential new industry.
That's great to hear. It really showcases how regions can innovate, right? Trying to meet climate goals, transition their economies proactively. It's a good example of local initiative potentially driving national change towards a more sustainable future.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered the core intelligence points, but beyond the sort of verified facts, what's the pulse on the ground? How are people actually reacting to all this? Let's dive into the people's hearsay section of the report. This gives us a sense of public sentiment, kind of a valuable, if less formal, intelligence layer.
Right. This is fascinating stuff. So in the Middle East, focusing on the humanitarian crisis, the sentiment online is overwhelmingly sympathetic towards Palestinian civilians. You see strong demands for accountability. And there are rising calls to boycott companies perceived as being complicit or enabling the situation. Hashtags like hashtag Gaza starvation and hashtag break the siege are trending, showing real outrage and calls for immediate action.
Okay. What about Asia?
For Asia and those border clashes between Thailand and Cambodia, the sentiment is more mixed. There's definitely war fatigue, people expressing humanitarian concern, but that competes with some pretty strong nationalist fervor on both sides. Interestingly, posts applauded Trump's mediation effort, but many also openly mocked the whole golf course diplomacy aspect. It shows a real suspicion of great power interference in regional affairs.
Right. A bit of cynicism there, maybe. Europe?
In Europe, reacting to the wildfires, there's palpable environmental anxiety, really strong calls for more robust climate action. The hashtag climate emergency is everywhere. On the trade front, though, there's some moderate optimism about the progress in the EU-US talks using hashtags like hashtag trade deal. People are hoping for stability there.
And back in North America.
In North America, regarding the heat wave, the online conversation emphasizes community resilience, neighbors helping neighbors, that sort of thing, and definitely increased climate change awareness using hashtag heatwave2025. But at the same time, there's growing anger and frustration over immigration policies, especially concerning things like the U.S. visa bans and reports about migrant detention conditions. Hashtags like hashtag immigration justice are prominent.
Africa.
Across Africa, linked to the political unrest we discussed, there's high frustration showing up online about political repression. You see hashtags like hashtag free Camto related to Cameroon and hashtag Tunisia democracy. There are many calls for international pressure on governments, but also for local mobilization. A worrying trend, though, is the spread of misinformation, sometimes quite dangerous, like around hashtag Benue massacre in Nigeria.
Yeah, misinformation is always a concern. Latin America.
In Latin America, related to elections and politics, there's a bit of humor and satire, especially around political families, like with hashtag My Siblings in Argentina. There's also clear empathy being expressed for migrants and those young athletes caught up in visa issues. And sharp criticism of U.S. policies reflected in things like hashtag self-deportation and hashtag Little League Justice.
And finally, Oceania.
Oceania Pacific and its theme of resilience seems to reflect mostly positive sentiment online. People seem supportive of local initiatives like the hydrogen plan and efforts towards inclusive development. Hashtags like hashtag hydrogen future and hashtag NZ health reflect that optimism.
So what does this hearsay layer really tell us? It's not just what happened, but it's the feeling around it, right? It gives us a window into those emotional currents, the social dynamics driving public opinion, insights you might miss just looking at official reports. It's like the human pulse of global intelligence.
Exactly. It adds that crucial layer of context and feeling.
Great. Now let's pull it all together. Let's move into the correlational analysis section. This is where Next Sight really connects the dots, showing how seemingly separate events ripple across the globe.
Right. So looking at regional correlations first. In North America, that heat wave obviously drove up electricity demand. That lifted natural gas futures, utility company stocks went up. Insurers, though, braced for claims. Violent incidents boosted security stocks. And that judge's ruling on birthright citizenship, it actually eased fears about mass deportations, which helps stabilize labor markets like construction and agriculture. Little things connect. In Europe, the optimism around the EU-US trade talks gave a little boost to European auto stocks. The euro strengthened slightly. But the wildfires hit Greek airline shares because of tourism cancellations. And countries funding Patriot missiles for Ukraine, that signals long-term defense spending directly benefiting U.S. contractors and European defense funds. Money follows the policy.
Okay.
In Asia, that Thai-Cambodian border conflict put pressure on the Thai baht and the Cambodian riel. Investors were watching closely for any hint of U.S. sanctions. China's AI cooperation initiative lifted Chinese tech stocks, but then severe flooding in Hebei province disrupted manufacturing and logistics, causing some commodity prices to rise. One offsets the other sometimes.
Right. Middle East.
In the Middle East, those terrible reports of starvation in Gaza, plus the resumed airdrops, triggered rallies in wheat and sugar futures. Why? Fears of supply disruptions and just increased humanitarian demand globally. Attacks in Iran and Lebanon led to a noticeable risk premium being added to Middle Eastern government bonds. And NGO funding appeals might redirect philanthropic money from other global causes.
Africa.
In Africa, the political instability in Cameroon, the ongoing violence in Nigeria, that weakened investor confidence. You saw Cameroon's Eurobond yields widen, Nigeria's currency slipped. But interestingly, that trend of American expats moving to Kenya and Ghana, that actually signaled some fresh opportunities for real estate developers and tourism businesses there, an unexpected positive correlation.
Latin America.
In Latin America, those U.S. visa denials and the self-deportation story highlighted immigration risks, which can dampen the flow of remittances, money sent home by workers abroad. That's crucial for some economies. Election campaigns in Venezuela, new cartel designations in Mexico, those increased currency volatility, and speculation about Karina Milei's influence in Argentina that actually affected Argentine bond spreads, politics directly hitting finance.
And Oceania.
Lastly, Oceania Pacific. That Westgate fire had pretty limited market impact, though local insurers faced claims, but the hydrogen investment proposals attracted interest from renewable energy funds. And improved healthcare services signal potential growth for medical tech suppliers, mostly stable, localized impacts.
Wow. It's really incredible when you lay it out like that, how these correlations reveal the hidden ripple effects, seemingly local events resonating globally. It just shows the true complexity, the interconnectedness of it all. It's never just one isolated thing, is it?
Never. It's always a web. And if we zoom out even further, connecting all these regional correlations, NextSight identifies 3 major global implications tying things together. First is humanitarian pressure on commodities. You've got simultaneous crises in Gaza and Nigeria, both driving up global humanitarian demand for essentials like grains and medical supplies. This directly supports the prices of things like wheat, rice, pharmaceuticals. It also put a real strain on existing supply chains as aid agencies and donors are forced to devote resources.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second one?
Second, we're seeing tech geopolitics convergence. China's push for that global AI governance body isn't just about tech standards. It's a major strategic move. It could shape global rules and directly challenge U.S. efforts to restrict China's access to critical technology, like advanced semiconductors. This will absolutely influence the stock valuations of semiconductor and AI firms worldwide. Investors really need to watch regulatory developments closely in this space. It's where tech meets global power politics.
Right. And the third global theme.
Third, and perhaps most pervasive right now, is climate-driven financial risk. Those extreme weather events we discussed across 3 different continents, the heat waves, the wildfires, the floods, they starkly underscore the immediate, tangible financial impact of climate change. It's not theoretical anymore. Insurers, utilities, agribusinesses, tourism companies, they are all facing immediate risks to their earnings right now, and long-term investors. They should probably be seriously considering increasing their allocations to climate-resilient infrastructure and businesses. The financial risk is real and growing.
Powerful connections.
Yeah, I mean, considering this diverse range of global challenges we've just walked through, from these climate disasters, political shifts, humanitarian crises, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of our future is being shaped right now by these unseen, maybe yet deeply interconnected threads? It reminds us that to truly understand any single event, you often have to understand its global echoes.
That's a really powerful thought to leave us with. A lot to mull over. Okay, everyone, do not forget to follow us on YouTube, Next Site Intelligence, and like, share, and comment below on the platform you're listening on. We really do look forward to hearing your opinion. That is it for today. Enjoy your day.